I'm a single mum with a mortgage. If things don't pan out, I can't go and sleep on my mum's couch. We had to scale up and move some of our manufacturing to Taiwan. New Zealand could not cope with it. Okay, I could treat the live lice, but I was not seeing the eggs. And of course, 10 days later, they're hatching into new lice. There's never anything around the detection. When you miss an egg, that you start that whole infestation process. Before you even get a product to the point that you can sell it online, you've had to output all this incredible amount of cash. If this takes off, we entered the United States market for $2,000. If I knew then what I know now, I don't know if I would go down that road. With that growth comes huge amounts of regulatory things that dictate everything. You've only got this much time to prove yourself. What if I run out of money before I've had a chance to really see if this is going to fly?
Kate, if someone listening to this conversation clicked on it, why should they listen to the whole thing to the end? Look,
I think entrepreneurism it's not an easy thing to do. It's not something that I personally set out to do. It's happened organically. But every time I wake up and think, this is it. I can't do this anymore. My time is pulled. Something will happen. It'll be an email from a customer, or it'll be feedback, or it'll be a community organization that says, this is the impact you've had on us. And you realize then that what you're doing now, this tiny thing, is actually having a huge wage of impact. And developing a product like this is an emotional product. And when you've got something in an emotional category, the way you approach it is completely different. And that becomes very powerful. And then you go, yes, that's why I'm doing it. I'm going to keep doing it because I'm actually really making an impact.
Thank you. I mean, we've just played an introduction for you, so people have a bit of an idea of who you are. But I'm always interested to find out, as a founder and entrepreneur, what is the real motivation? What is pushing you to keep going? Because there's an interesting point that you made where that you felt like you wanted to give up.
Yeah.
Which is common.
I haven't met any founder that has said I've never wanted to give up, to be honest, because with a founder journey, the highs are very high, but the lows are very low. And often you're shouldering it relatively alone, and you can get in your own head. But I think what it is the realization that there is something to this, that you're not kicking a dead horse, that if you can push through. And I think the further through the journey you get, you can see the wood for the trees a little bit more, and you can recognize blips as opposed to complete stop, and that comes with time and experience, unfortunately. The first blip always feels like the worst thing in the world. The first the first regulatory hurdle, all those things. But as you get along the journey, you go, okay, that's a bit of it's a blip, and how are we going to work around this? And then that problem solving actually becomes one of the more interesting parts of the role.
I want to know what's really driving you to keep going and driving you to work in the category that you are in right now.
What keeps me going every day is knowing that what I faced was a real problem. And it wasn't just a problem for me. It was that I was struggling with reoccurring head lice treatments in my kids. I was spending a lot of money on it. I was getting full-on resistance from my kids. We would all be in tears. And what was obviously happening was that I was not seeing the eggs. Okay, I could treat the live lice, but I was not seeing the eggs. And of course, 10 days later, they're hatching into new lice. And so really, when I thought about developing this glow-in-the-dark powder that helps you see lice or see the eggs under UV light, it was very much around how do we look at a detection system. So the lice treatment category is very much a treatment category, and it hasn't really changed for many, many years. This really helped me realize we needed the detection part of it to create sort of a detection and treatment system and kit with education around it as well.
So this sounds like you found a problem and you found a solution to the problem.
Absolutely.
And it sounds like have you been able to look at what's out there in the market? I mean, a lot of people who listen to the podcast go, I either want to start a business or start a company and solve a problem, but how do I know if there's a problem out there?
Exactly. Market validation. Not till I got further down the piece in a more formalized setting when, I was in some of the university's ecosystem for innovation sort of areas, did I realize what market validation was. All I knew was I had a problem. And then I would start to talk to other parents about it and they would go, oh my gosh, I have the same problem. I have the same problem. And then I would see it on the Facebook pages and I would see it everywhere and realize that the problem wasn't so much that they couldn't get hold of treatments. There are a lot of treatments on the market and there are a lot of preventative sprays and there are a lot of things. But what was happening is parents did not feel confident in being able to see what an egg looked like in their kid's head. And they were also really, really sick of fighting their kids on it. Kids did not want to buy into the process. Kids were not interested. They saw it very much as in the same line as going to bed early and vegetables. And so really the issue became, how do we reframe all of head lice as a category and put a focus on detection as well as education, and actually reframing it as something fun and scientific.
Yeah. So you started with conversations with 100%. Other parents. You obviously suffered from head lice in the family?
Absolutely. So my son, I've got two sons, and they were probably 6 and 9 at the time. Both of them are neurodiverse, but my oldest son has autism, ADHD. He's very sensory sensitive. And so I often, without thinking, really would have to reframe things or figure out outside the box how to do something to get him on board. I remember when I was a veterinary nurse, way back in the day, we used to use UV lights and we would diagnose cats with ringworm in cupboards because ringworm naturally fluoresces. And I, at the time, was also working at the university, and I was really, really lucky to have, all these interesting research articles coming my way. And one of them was also around entomologists using fingerprinting powder or, anti-theft powder to track insects at night. I just wondered with Hugo, what if I put all that together? And I said to him, hey buddy, what if we went and looked for glow in the dark bugs instead? And that just reframed everything for him. And suddenly he was so into it. There was no issues with sitting down. So I ordered some fingerprinting powder from the States, got it there, put it on his head. It worked. It was amazing. But then I looked. You can't look at the ingredients. You can't put that on kids' heads on a regular basis. And the cost was insane. But it got me thinking, could you develop something that was non-toxic, that could be made for a cost that parents could pay for it, and actually, solve this for other parents as well? And it's the neurodiverse community that have really, really embraced this. And it is the communities with kids that have a great interest in science. And that's what parents feedback to me. Thank you for making something that's such a painful task into something that is actually enjoyable and allows us to do regular checking.
So the pain have come out of your own pain.
Huge.
The pain to solve a problem has come out of your own experience.
Yeah. And it was developed purely selfishly for me. Like I was in pain. Yeah. I wasn't thinking, how do I commercialize this? Or it was literally like, my life is hard. How do I make it less hard?
And so it worked for you. It worked for you and for your family.
It worked.
Did it work for you? Like what you discovered, what could be the solution, did work for you, right?
It did work for me because suddenly Hugo was he was letting me sit there and look through his hair. His brother was getting involved as well, looking for it. And because of the odorless lotion, we weren't having the problems with the stinging and, the astringent smells and things like that we would normally have. And so it would take something that was often days and nights of bribery and effort, and it would really, really turn it into something that was me also being able to teach them a little bit about science, which was wonderful. They love it. The kids are very interested in science at this age.
Can we just track back now to the moment when you thought, I have a problem and I want to solve it, and then you went and solved the problem, found a solution. What made you think I can do this commercially and that it will work?
Yeah, good point. It certainly wasn't me necessarily thinking that. Like I was like, this is cool, works for me.
And by the way, sorry, how long did you use your own solution before you thought, maybe I can turn this into something that I can make money out of.
Exactly. Yeah. So I was playing around with it for a couple of months, right? Using it for Hugo.
Okay.
It was wonderful. The university at the time, University of Auckland, where I was working, had something called the Ideas Challenge. And that is where you submit 1,000 words about an idea. And if they like it, you get $1,000. And I thought, I can really do with $1,000. Someone said, you should enter it. Like, other parents are liking this. And I was like, I'm a professional staff member. Like, this is for students. This is for academics. But I submitted it and it won $1,000. And from there, they asked me to enter the Velocity $100,000 Challenge, which is their big innovation competition. And from there, you have to put a really intensive application together that probably did make me think twice and go, okay, I'm going to have to cover budget, market validation, a lot of different things that I hadn't even considered yet. Do I want to go ahead and do this application on top of being, a mum and work? But I did it, and then it got through and it won the social category. And I think from that moment, I was like, it's been externally validated by people who have seen businesses grow that there is a problem and that this is a potential solution to it and that there is a market for it, if that makes sense. So,
and this is still within the university.
The ecosystem. I had no idea what innovation was in my day. There really wasn't anything about it. Nowadays at the university, it's a formalized subject, but that was my first foray into it. I'd never heard of even really investment or governance or anything like that around that space. But through the university, when you win part of the social, the Velocity Challenge, you go into a Venture Lamp incubator for 7 months. And that's where you have your training wheels put on and they put you through all of those. And so when people ask me what I would advise, I say always try and get into an incubator. There are so many around. You've got Ministry of Awesome. There's new ones popping up all the time. Not only do you meet like-minded people, but they actually give you the core parts of things you need to consider for your own business. You are still going to have to put the work in for yourself about your own business, but they will help guide you, because at the end of that process, the university or its commercial arm, Uni Services, they came in and they invested in the company. And that was the first proper market signal, I should say, that, hey, they believe enough in me and this product that, I think we need to give this a really good go.
How important was it for you to take the step to apply for all these bits and pieces, even though you did not have all the information and the data, especially in that third application that you were mentioning?
Yeah. It's a big leap of faith. And I guess the trust that, look, every time I would doubt myself and say, look, you know how painful the problem is. You know it was a real problem. And you saw, you felt, you experienced how it helped you. You need to explore this further. You owe it to yourself. You've been given this opportunity. And, I just don't think I would have ever forgiven myself if I hadn't had a go. That's not to say that every application I've made since then for funding or for incubators or anything has been successful. But I've learned, if I don't try, then I'll never know whether I could have made it through. And obviously the decision to take investment was a big one, because we know there's a really big difference between bootstrapping and investment, and they have pros and cons. And suddenly when you're taking investment, yes, it's great, you have some money, but you then have another set of another group of people that you are
to be accountable to.
Absolutely. And that's, also good because they have experience, and they support you. But
how did you get the investment? Did they just give it to you, or did you ask for it?
No one just gives you
Stupid question.
No one just gives you investment. It was through the university again. I had been presenting to their investment committees for a long time, their return on science, their momentum committees, which are student-led, because someone said to me early on, hey, you can go and present to these committees. You don't need to ask. You don't have to have a financial ask. You can go and present to them and get this amazing feedback early on. And so I had presented to them maybe 3 or 4 times in total beforehand, before I actually went in and made an ask. But what that meant was I had heard their butts and their what ifs and their concerns, and being able to go away and work out how I would address those, so that when I actually made the ask, we were in a much better position. The following year, I was really fortunate enough to be at the Auckland Angels Association event, and they had what they called a pitch speed dating, and you would sit in front of people that had come from various investment backgrounds, angels, VCs, all that sort of stuff, and you had 90 seconds to pitch to each one, and you just moved along the line. And I think I pitched nonstop for 90 minutes. But boy, at the beginning, if you saw my beginning pitch and then you heard my end, it was one of the best exercises I've ever done, because I had an hour and a half and I got that pitch down, absolutely honed in 90 seconds. And then through that got Cure Kids Investments to come and invest in us as well. And that meant so much, because they're so aligned with us. The university is very aligned with us from the academic sense, but Cure Kids is very aligned with us because of our social impact factor and the education side.
So this means, okay, you tell me what the lesson was from that experience, and what the lesson that you can actually teach other entrepreneurs
is that when you get the opportunity to pitch, don't always treat it as this is only about getting money or not getting money. It's a great sense check, and pitch to people that you're not even asking money from. Send your pitch deck for people that already know what they would normally say if someone was pitching for money. Okay, because you're better to make those mistakes, and they're not necessarily mistakes or guidance or pivots, with those people than when you actually go and ask for money. And I continue to do that to this day, where I will send pitch decks to investors that we're not considering, and just say, hey, I know it's not really your lane, but what would your kind of concerns be, or what would you expand on, and things like that, because it is getting harder as I get further into it to go, how do I put all this information into a pitch deck without overloading somebody? And what's the really important things to put in, because there's so much to talk about.
Well, if I was an investor right now and you would to pitch to me, what would it be like?
I would tell you that we have developed a full kid lice detection and treatment system, and that the lice market is currently estimated probably about $1.5 billion, set to be maybe 2.3 by 2037, and that the detection side of it makes us stand out from the rest, that we have distribution across New Zealand and Australian pharmacies, that we are in Amazon, that we have TGA, MedSafe, FDA approval, and that we're currently running a clinician-based pilot in the US with lice clinics, and that there are at least 750 lice clinics in America, each doing between 10 and 30 treatments a week. So the distribution is wide, and we have an amazing opportunity that not every company that produces lice products has been given. So
that was a great pitch, by the way. Well done. And it was actually the perfect set of information that I needed to know from you, because I was going to ask you where you're at right now with this business, and I wanted it to be in a very concise way. That was a great answer to my question that I didn't ask. So you've mentioned that there's a lot on that pitch. There's a lot to unpack here. So if you can just explain to me, so where are you at with your business right now in terms of revenue, growth? Yeah. How big is it? Like how much, if you're happy to share information about how much money that you're making, or how much the revenue, where do you want it to be? Where is it right now, and then where do you want it to be later? Yeah, well, we're not profitable, but I don't know many startups. I think. How many months, years have you been? That's it. So I think I registered the company like 3 years ago, because I couldn't receive the money from the university. You get a little bit of seed money when you win the challenge. You have to register a company. So that was like 3 years ago. I stepped away from my full-time role 18 months ago. Gotcha. And that was a massive decision, because I'm, a single mum with a mortgage. I have responsibility to my kids. If things don't pan out, I can't go and sleep on my mum's couch. Like I have to,
But I was like, this is my chance. So, that's what also motivates me every single day, is that I can't just give up. Like, I've got to see this through and see what I can do with it. And I owe it to the kids as well. But basically, we are across pharmacy chains in New Zealand and Australia. We have a medical distributor in New Zealand and a medical distributor in Australia. We've just received confirmation that Bargain Chemist is taking us on as a range. We're compliance ranged in Green Cross, which does Life and Unichem. And we're on Amazon as well, which was actually a massive thing to set up an Amazon store. And because we don't have it here, I think I underappreciated how I thought it would be a bit more like Trade Me, but for founders that are looking at popping their product on Amazon, it's quite a complex process. And, there's a lot to be learnt there. We then obviously have this clinician-based pilot, because in the US, when your kid gets head lice, you don't do an counter product. You tend to take your child to a lice clinic, and you pay anywhere between $115 to $150 American to have them do it. So we suddenly have these beautiful educators right there with the product, showing parents this is what an egg looks like. And they're obviously very interested in taking it on as a retail sell in the clinics. In terms of revenue, we might be making $100K a year, but our outgoings are phenomenal and still have been and continue to be, because you are dealing with a highly regulated product. Now, regulation takes a lot of time, a lot of resource, and a lot of money. You need clinical experts, you need regulatory teams, you need the payments. It just hemorrhages basically. But if you don't do that, the doors don't open and you leave yourself wide open for some really serious issues.
Does it not put you off, all of that? Like, just the word regulation.
I think if I knew now, if I knew then what I know now, I don't know if I would go down that road, because,
Do you think so?
Because I go, it's lice treatment, it's a big deal. And I think MedSafe is a lot more. MedSafe in New Zealand is a lot more. For
people who don't know MedSafe.
MedSafe is our regulatory body for our medical devices and things here. It's a lot more simplistic, and it's a lot more sort of easier to understand. You start to get into TGA, which is the Therapeutic Goods Association in Australia, which is like the FDA. And obviously we've got the FDA in America. With that growth comes huge amounts of regulatory things that really dictate everything from where you can manufacture, what you can manufacture, what advertising you can do, what claims you can make. And that has been one of the hardest things, is those therapeutic claims.
And you would think that you're not like a big massive company. Like, are you just in what, like, you
just
in the
me
business?
And I have a fractional CFO and co-founder that I brought on, who's amazing and is my sounding board. And then everything else is what I call a fractional partnership. So I bring on contract partners that really get us and what we're trying to achieve. Like, I've got a full global regulatory team. We have incredible manufacturing partners overseas now. We had to scale up and go and move some of our manufacturing to Taiwan. New Zealand could not cope with it. And also, we can't make powder here. Like, no... Right. We couldn't make a powder.
Where do you manufacture then?
We're manufacturing in Taiwan at the moment.
Okay.
Yeah, we've got an incredible company there, because they now have to be TGA registered, FDA registered, all these things as well that New Zealand companies would struggle with. They struggled with the volume, and then they also struggled with hitting all those milestones, and the fact that we do a lot of nutraceuticals and things here. And so the products or the components that are in our powder are not necessarily, or shouldn't necessarily be put anywhere near somewhere that's doing nutraceuticals. So what happens is, before you even get a product to the point that you can sell it online, even on Shopify, you've had to output all this incredible amount of cash.
Yeah.
And the other thing that was probably the biggest shock, or just the biggest adjustment, was that I used to think 300 units was a really massive MOQ, or minimum order quantity, and I'd freak out about it. But now you grow bigger in scale, and they don't want to know about you unless you're ordering 30,000 units at a time. So that's a minimum order quantity when you're dealing with manufacturers, because it's not worth it to them otherwise.
And what's the cost of that?
Well, huge. I mean, that's probably 30,000 sachets for us. You know, it'll be in American dollars to start with. We now have paid everything in American dollars, which has been very painful.
Yeah, it is.
We're talking tens and thousands of dollars.
Yep.
That you've got to output just to get a component done before it can come back here, before it can be packed. So
there's a lot of like money that you have to pay in advance.
Hugely.
In your business.
Yeah. And I think when people are starting to think about a product business, particularly a healthcare product or personal healthcare, it's really important to realize that, and to realize that even when you do get the product in your hand, if you are going the retail route, and there's a reason why we pivoted from Shopify more into retail distribution and pharmacy, they'll often have a 60 to 90 day payment period. So if you add in the maybe 12-week manufacturing time, that's where you first pay, then you're adding in a 60 to 90 day payment period for the retail pharmacies. That's a really long time to survive without cash before you get paid. And because as a small business, I think what trips most of us up is cash flow.
Yeah.
We can't weather those big storms. Right now, it's a lot harder for us to weather the fuel increases, the freight increases, and all the global sort of situation. We feel those. I liken us to being on a little rowboat when some of the big companies are in big ships. You know, they don't feel the bumps as much. And for us, that rockiness is like, right, all hands on deck, what do we do? But the upside of that is that we can pivot really quickly because we are small. And I think the bigger you get, it's a lot harder to do that. That's a strength.
All right, you guys, I want to tell you about one resource that I look into and check all the time. It's helped me in my own business journey, and it's made me a better business owner, a better podcaster, helped me stay on top of all the business news that are happening in New Zealand. It's called NZ Business Magazine. It's one of the New Zealand's oldest and most trusted sources for business stories, insights, and analysis for SME owners and leaders. So we've partnered together to help bring these kind of conversations like this one to more Kiwi entrepreneurs across New Zealand. So if you want to stay on top of what's happening in business, visit nzbusiness.co.nz today. And also, guys, I want to let you know about this course that I've just started thanks to a parent who suggested that I should, because I wanted to learn about AI, and she's like, I challenge you, Mina, to go and learn about AI. So here goes. On this episode with Perrin, I said I am keen to understand how AI is going to be impacting me and impacting New Zealand, impacting our work. And so I signed up to this course called Disruptive Technologies with Academy X. And the first week has been incredible. I've just come off the course and it felt like baptism, like fire. There was so much information. We were just told how significant and grandiose and crazy big this AI is. Like, people talk about tsunami. I'm like, forget about tsunami. What's bigger than tsunami? I feel like there's a lot of money going into AI. When we talk about a lot of money, we're talking about billions, like over 100 billion. We're talking about venture capital investments, meaning people with lots of money are choosing to put their money behind AI. The uptake of how many people are using it is beyond bonkers. But also, so many people are using it. So are you using it for good, for the best way? Am I using it in the best way possible? So this is just like a video cameo, and I wanted to update you and tell you that I've just come off the course and it went really well. First day, first week. If you want to join me, there's a link in the description. It's not too late. Okay, see you later. Hello, thanks for watching this video. Quick note, have you subscribed? Over 90% of people who are watching on YouTube or listening on Spotify or on Apple are not subscribed or following. Please do so now. It's so simple. The button will be around the screen somewhere. You either hit subscribe or hit the follow button or leave me a review. It will help me so much, helps me grow as a channel and support my work. So I really appreciate it. Okay. Back to the episode. How do you deal with cash flow? How do you make sure that your cash flow, like, because you're talking about the 60-90 period, meaning 100%. You, in simple terms, does that mean that you give people your product, they go and try and sell it, and then 60-90 days later, if they make money, they'll pay you?
No, we started off that way.
I'm great that I asked because that was
great. That's been really interesting. And that has been, when we talk about mistakes or pivots or lessons, that I would say is one of our biggest lessons. When we first started, or I first started the company, we made this assumption, and, I guess you've got to make assumptions in order to destroy them. But we thought schools are going to love this because, they can send out the head lice notice and they can put our product on their Kendo, which is like most of the schools now have an e-commerce platform.
But why would they pick your product at schools? Because they have access to so many pre-existing products. Why would they do that?
Well, because schools, the interesting thing is that the responsibility for treating head lice has come back on the parents. In the 80s, when I was young, schools were able to treat students, and they would have parent helps come in and actually do head lice checks. Nowadays, schools are not allowed to treat. They're not allowed to identify kids, and no parent I know has capacity to come and do head lice checks. So the issue then becomes, okay, how do we encourage parents as schools to actually treat? Because the government currently says legally, if your child has head lice, they should stay home from school until they're treated, which has a huge effect, because if that was actually adhered to, schools' absenteeism rates are going down. That is a huge factor for schools. They're very concerned about it. And also, I don't know also another parent that has the capacity to stay home and look after their children when they have head lice, if that makes sense. So really, schools were very invested in how do we encourage parents to do this, okay? Because we can ask them, but we can't make them. And so the product became very interesting because it was because of that buy-in from the kids. And they did love it. It's just that schools are not set up to deal with consignment products. Schools are so under-resourced that there is no capacity from an administrative point of view to actually handle a consignment product. And all of their financial systems were completely different. So it became a very manual task to try and follow up. And it became very challenging to sort of try and support every school individually. And it became really clear that it wasn't very scalable. And that's the true thing. How do we scale this? How do we be able to step away and actually have it working?
I mean, as a mother, as an entrepreneur, you've got a small team, and you were just explaining the challenges, external challenges right now that are happening. You've got the war, as we are recording this, there's war happening, and that's been impacting your business in terms of petrol and energy and stuff like that, and all the regulatory hurdles that you have to come through. And you were just saying that you would consider, you would think twice about going down the route of doing a business like this, knowing the hurdles, or would you still think, no, I will find my way, I will make it work? I'll still think it's, I mean, obviously you believe in the product.
Yeah.
Believing in the product is one thing, but getting so many hurdles that actually impact how you grow and how fast you can grow, doesn't that frustrate you so much?
Yeah, you're right. It's two different things, right? And I think if I had a crystal ball and I could say, hey, guess what? COVID's over, but this recession's going to hit and fuel's going to go up, and the funding dollar is going to be so competitive from a philanthropic point of view and an investment point of view. Maybe it's not that I would have gone, I'm not going to do it. I might have held it off for another few years. I might have just said, okay, well, I'm going to get to that and hope that nobody else gets there first, because that, I'm often thinking if a business fails, it's these external factors that I don't have a lot of control over. And that's the most frustrating part. And when I hate it because it affects us, but it also affects the customers. So we then moved to Shopify, you see, and we thought, well, we'll just do B2C.
Yeah.
But of course now to freight one of our kits across Auckland overnight, because obviously you don't want to wait 3 days for head lice treatment, is $11. And initially we were covering that cost and swallowing it. And then we had to try and charge $5 for shipping, but that's still us subsidizing $6 for every box, which cuts significantly into your margins. And it also became clear that parents, when they discover those bugs, they want to go and do something right away, which is why it then became really important for us to go and partner with pharmacy, because we needed them to be able to go out and get it and make it as accessible as possible.
So your model now is there's two things, obviously B2C and B2B.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So both?
Yes,
are you
yes, we are. We're still on both. Yeah. I think there's a real power in B2C. It allows us to stay very connected with our customers and feedback, and also allows us to support our rural customers and things like that. And we see that across Australia. And you know what? There's pros and cons. You move to a B2D and it's in pharmacy. You suddenly only have that box for education, and you don't have someone on a website where you can write lots about the product and why and things like that. You have a lot more retail to work with in terms of showing people, educating them about the product. When you go onto a shelf, and this is the other thing that I've learned about product businesses, is you only have your box. So how do you communicate as much as you possibly can, but without overwhelming the customer? And that in itself has been it's a science, and it's still evolving. Every time we do new packaging, there's always improvements for it.
So did you say B2D, business to distributor?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we go through distributors now.
Yeah.
And it was at the time, or when we consider it, a very painful decision, because you've put all this work into creating it, a product. You've paid all this money to get the regulatory. You've paid all this money for components, and then suddenly you're giving this margin to a distributor, and then you have to also account for a retailer margin. But actually it was the best thing we've ever done, because our biggest problem was there's one of me, and I was selling the product into pharmacies from the boot of my car. I would walk around with the product and go and say, I've got this new product. Do you think you're interested in stocking it? And they were picking it up. The problem is I suddenly realized, how am I going to service 60 pharmacies from top of New Zealand to down? Like, I can't physically go and do that myself. How am I going to educate them about the product? How am I going to keep them up to date with what's going on? And so this distributor, it was all about finding the right distributor. And it's actually an amazing pair of ladies who saw me on one of the Good Morning shows, who just reached out to say, hey, we just loved it. We love your story. They weren't pitching for business. They just said it resonated with us. We really, really love it. And through that, we managed to get this amazing partner, USL, who have just been so supportive of us. And what happens is we've extended the iSpy family. We now have like a sales team effectively of like 12 people that are out championing us, and they already have pre-existing trusted relationships with the pharmacies. They trust these people, and they're able to spread our word without me physically having to be there. And that's what's starting to make it scalable for us across New Zealand and Australia, because we've also partnered with Sterling Fields in Australia. Same thing. Great team, very education focused, allows us to get a lot further.
You were talking about cash flow.
I was.
And
my bugbear.
Can't stand. Well, I find cash flow to be the biggest problem for people who come on this podcast.
It's my most searched. ChatGPT helped me. I'm not going to lie. It is. When you're in our business, this is when people say, "Oh, you should try and bootstrap, because you shouldn't take investment," because I don't know how anyone would be able to do it without that, right? The amount, we haven't asked for heaps. We're not in the $1 million industry of asking for so many million and things like that, which I'm grateful for, because, I don't want to ask for any more than we need, but it has allowed us to go and pay for all this regulatory stuff. We have MedSafe, we have TGA, we have FDA.
How do you deal with cash flow?
Basically what happens is we have a fund we have capital from our investors, and then we have income coming in. My goal at the moment is to try and make sure that our monthly income is paying for our operational costs, and that when we're dipping into the capital investment from the investor is for growth. So it is for something like legal or regulatory, or, and if we got a really big order, it would be about going to talk to banks or something and saying, hey, we've got this purchase order for this many units. Would you lend us some money on the provisor that we can pay it back at this time.
Can you say that again? So the revenue that you would get versus the capital that you'll have from investors.
Yeah. So we run a very lean operational model. If you remove the expenses that I would say are our big ones, like regulatory, legal, and manufacturing costs, because, we're a shoestring. Like when I went to the States last year for the business, I was eating New York hot dogs and walking everywhere. It was, I'm very respectful of money because I say, A, it's not mine, but also, every dollar counts. And I'm used to it as a mum, budgeting, as everybody is in the household nowadays. Like, how do you make your dollar go further? So the idea is to use the income that comes in from our distribution channels to fund the operational needs, the monthly operational needs of the business.
Which is what?
It'll be things like the car, our advertising, our printing. We do have to commit a certain amount of co-budget for advertising with our distributors, subscriptions to things, but we run very leanly. Like we're probably running like on, maybe $2,500 a month, not including salary, I say. And that was the other thing. I was having to take a salary and I felt bad about that. It was a bit of a decision, but I was like, it's either I take a salary and be able to put everything into growing this, or I stay in my role and I can put stuff in, but the reality is I'm not going to be able to do it faster, and I'm going to be really burned out. Basically, I was just burning out. I was a mum. I was working till midnights. I was doing a full-time, fairly high-powered strategic job. The burnout was going to happen, and the investors saw that and said, we would rather you be in the business. So the capital from the investors is very much about supporting the growth, about me as a founder. In terms of the manufacturing, we've been okay up until now.
So the way that you looked at it is the capital from founders is what is going to help fund you,
grow. It's growth.
Help you. So your salary comes from. Do you use it to? Salary comes from the founders' capital. Sorry, from the founders' capital or from the revenue.
Probably comes from the capital at the moment.
Okay.
We're still so little. I would say it's the more proportionate, huge proportion would come from the capital.
Is that something that when you talk about your business and the future with your business partner or your coach, what do they say? What's usually happen with? I mean, I'm very interested in that.
It's interesting because I think there's a lot of concepts, particularly in the old Dragon Dens days, is that you shouldn't be taking any salary and you should put everything into the business. I know that's weird. I'm in my 40s and I have sole responsibility, for these 2 children and mortgage. It's just not feasible for me to do that. And
to depend on the revenue income.
Yeah, we're not there yet. There's no way. Yeah. We just don't make enough at the moment because distributor orders, we started distributing in New Zealand probably around July, August last year, and we started properly in Australia in November. Now we are having repeat, and those orders are getting bigger and bigger and bigger. That's great. It takes time for that to happen. We unfortunately did waste time with the schools model and the B2C model, and I wish we hadn't. But
let's look at it. Wasting of time.
We've learned now, and now we're like, okay, cool. Now, and also it's actually simplified things for me. Now everything I think is how do I support the distributors to do well? So from a salary perspective, I don't beat myself up about that anymore because I'm like, actually when the investors invested, and this was the other thing that was a real surprise to me as someone completely new to the investment side, they're investing in you. They're investing in the product and the business, yes, but they're investing in you. So they want you to succeed and they're backing you. And so they're happy for you to take a salary. They wouldn't be happy if I was taking it and, I don't know, holidaying and not doing any work, but they see how hard I work. And they see that I'm just absolutely doing my damnedest to make this fly. And they see my passion for the education shift, for the paradigm shift, and that the success that we are having with changing opinions, and we're challenging treatment models that have been going on for a really long time. So I don't feel bad about that anymore.
get into the product itself, because we haven't had the chance to unpack it as to, or maybe we have had, we've spoken about so many things, but in terms of the product itself, how different is it with everything else that is in the market right now?
Yeah. So you'll find that lice have been around for millions.
Forever.
They have. Yeah. We are still extracting.
Is it a big problem?
It's a huge problem. It's almost, I think, one of the number one public health infestations in the world. Yeah. And it does not, it levels the playing field. Nobody is immune to it, and it doesn't matter, rich, poor, wherever, whatever.
Everyone gets it.
Everyone gets it, right? Yeah. And it's not going away. And that's what there are times where I'm talking to investors and they're like, oh, I like AI and I like this. And I'm like, okay, but lice, I know it's not sexy. I know it's not, but it's not going away. It's a real problem and people have to deal with it. Okay. So, when you look at what's on the market, you've got a lot of products that focus all of them pretty much focus either on treatment or prevention. So you've got treatment, shampoos, lotions. Some will contain pesticides and chemicals, which is obviously not great for various reasons, but especially chemical resistance, just like antibiotics, where, lice are evolving. They're building up a resistance to the chemicals.
Yeah.
Then you've got your essential oils. You've got to put quite a lot of essential oil into something to make it repel lice. And then you've got your prevention products. And those are your sprays that have a little bit of tea tree oil or anything in there. And they're meant to be, you put that in so that lice don't want to go near the hair. Okay. But there's never anything around the detection. And when you think about it, it's when you miss an egg that you start that whole infestation process. And so for us, we're bringing the detection part in there and that confidence for parents. I didn't know what I was looking for. When my kid first had head lice, even though I'd suffered it a lot as a kid, I thought it was dandruff. And I just thought, oh my gosh, I'm not washing his hair properly. And I was scrubbing, why are these white things not coming off? I didn't know what an egg looked like. And I found that's the same for every parent. It doesn't matter if you're a Google parent and you Googled how to do everything as a parent, or you've never looked at it. You don't know always what your hair, like the eggs, look like. And so showing them that really empowers them to go, oh, we've seen a few eggs, quick, let's do something about it. And you will avoid an infestation by doing that.
And no one else is doing this product?
No, there's no powdered product, no. So it's exciting, but it's terrifying all at the same time, because you're like, why is nobody doing it? But actually, I think when you look at the big companies, they're really focused on treatment. And for them to go and look at a detection side would mean a pretty massive strategic change in direction for them.
Have you looked into partnering with big companies?
I'd love to partner with a big company. And
so that they can be the detection arm?
100%.
And then they can be the treatment arm, and you can get paid for?
Big believer in, joint venture, all that. I'm a big believer in, it's not necessarily competition, but it's like, where can you both add value? Yeah, yeah. Absolutely. Yep. Because, and that's where the clinician model works for the US. We're not trying to compete with how they choose to treat their clients. Some will treat through this hot air technology. Some will do comb through. Some will do dimethicone. We're not messing with any of that. We're complementing that by giving them the detection stuff at the beginning.
You're coming in early.
We are, absolutely. So when I went to the States and I met with the academics around head lice, and that was great.
Yeah.
But I met with the Lice Removal Network. They are a professional organization that look after the clinics in the US, and they are the ones that have come on board as a marketing distribution partner for us. And they are the ones that are championing us in the States. We don't have to sell to any of these clinics. They are doing all of that, which is really powerful.
I was just going to say, what marketing strategies have helped you in your business? If you can really simply explain that to me at the start, when you were first starting, you're like, oh, I need to market. Like, someone had to know about me. How do I get my word out there? How does that work? Like, where have you been able to get your, like, at the start, what did you do?
At the start, it was super word of mouth, put up a website, try Facebook, and it was, I would call it the Facebook Mums Group, as in that's a powerful tool, and I still definitely do not underestimate that.
That is a really tricky part, because with Facebook, there's always like a moderator that makes you wait for approval to have your.
It's not. I mean, by no means
post.
is it your soul, or you now we wouldn't rely on it. But you asked what I did at the beginning. Well, when you look at what budget I had, that's all I had. And I was also looking for market validation. Like, is this something people would like?
But even with what I mean by that is Facebook is a bit of a challenge because you have to be careful about how you post. And
you do. I mean, I could post personally. That was great.
Yeah.
Now you're right. When you shift into therapeutic products and posting from business accounts, you also are dealing with a pay-to-play model, and it is absolutely brutal.
It's actually not easy to use Facebook, isn't it? Meta,
Google Ads, anything like that. The pay-to-play model is absolutely brutal, and it is. For us, we've had far more success now that we're big enough to start attracting distributors and things like that, is we are harnessing their marketing teams and their knowledge of the sectors that they're in. They know them inside out. They have relationships. For example, the lice removal network, they know their members the best. They do monthly calls with all their members. They are talking personally about our product. Now, that it's almost like you can't buy that kind of marketing. We still need to stay present for brand awareness, but right now the biggest thing for us is education. So I go out and I do interactive school sessions. I was scientist and residence at Motown. I'm exhibiting at their STEM Expo next month. I am collaborating with Auckland City Libraries, where I run these really fun school holiday programs about knits in the micro world, because it's the education that creates the brand, and it shows them, well, I hope it does, we're really passionate about head lice. We're not just trying to make a buck off you. This is about us trying to empower parents to know more, to feel educated so they feel comfortable dealing with the problem.
So you looked at Facebook groups and stuff at the start, but you might have touched on this in bits and pieces, but I'd like it a bit more clear. So 3 years into the business, where is marketing really working well for your business now?
Yeah. Okay. So we still run Google Ads is still pretty good for us. I think often people will panic, see head lice and Google, help, head lice. We do run meta ads, mainly, reminding people that we're in pharmacies, particularly as we start to pick up the chains now, like bargain chemists and stuff. We're really proud of that. We want to make people to know, hey, you can go out at 6 o'clock at night and get head lice treatment. Like go. The
benefit of
that's brand marketing. We're less conversion marketing, as in come and buy the product from us on Shopify, because we want to support our distributors, but also the advertising. Okay. So that's when you go on with when you go with a distributor, you will often co-pay a certain amount towards advertising budget for that year for your product. And that might look like shelf labels, or it might look like mailer inserts or EDMs and things like that. And again, I could try and do all this myself, but I'm not a marketing expert. And also I would just run out of time and I would never do it as well. Whereas they have people that know what hits and what doesn't. And I'm a big believer in outsourcing that and partnering with them and learning from them. I love learning about it. I don't want to do it. Like, my life is busy enough with regulatory, growing the business, looking for the distributors, managing that education and brand piece. I don't have the time to sit there and try and create Facebook ads.
Yeah, it's a whole nother world.
Well, it is. And then just again, the whole TikTok culture, so that pay to play, it makes it really hard.
Have you explored? Do you explore things like content? Do you explore things like? How does that work for your kind of niche industry?
Some days I feel like we've explored everything because that's what you should do, right? But I tried TikTok. I absolutely hated it. I'm not a TikTok person. I get very anxious. As in 30-second videos. I'm not a
scroller. Hold of the camera and film yourself?
No, I have no problem with that. I think what it is I don't like how quick and it's very, scrolling. Oh, I'm not interested if you don't get a hook in 10 seconds. And I think that, I guess that worries me for other reasons, having two children, but also it was really only attracting the AMSR crowd, the ones that liked seeing lice picking and things like that. It wasn't really, I would call it converting into brand brand engagement or sales or anything like that. And that wasn't really what I was trying to achieve. If I'm trying to educate, there is an element of those platforms that will come to it. But right now in the New Zealand community, I can do so much more when I attend things like the MOTAT thing. I'm standing there and people, I think I had 26,000 people come through. I was scientist at resident, and they all came up to me to ask about my product. Like, you can't buy that kind of advertising where I could genuinely explain to them why. Same with FunFest. We do FunFest every year,
What's FunFest?
It's a big community event run by the Wiri Licensing Trust for kids out in South Auckland. And it's sort of designed to replicate like Rainbow's End for them. And it's amazing. Everything's free. It's rides, but there's a huge health education space. And they've been such great partners for us because they've seen the value. They say that we're like one of their most popular stalls because we set up with STEM activities. And I was treating kids at that. Like, I didn't intend to, but I had parents starting to ask, can I sit my daughter down? Can you treat her for head lice right here?
Oh, wow.
So I was doing treatments with our spray, because we're moving from tubes to spray, and plaiting up their beautiful hair again and clipping and saying, you go have fun for the day. Wash that out later tonight if you want. But because there's no smell, they didn't have to worry about someone smelling it and going, have you just been treated for head lice? But also we were able to destigmatize it, because initially our first thought is gross. When kids start to learn the really cool, fun, interesting facts about how nits camouflage themselves and stuff, it turns it from something that is stigmatizing into something interesting. Yeah. And then they'll talk about it.
Definitely there's a more chance for people to understand and educate themselves, because your product and the way that you've handled your business, your product lends itself to education more than a treatment product, because treatment product, just put it on, just remove it.
Absolutely.
I just don't think about it.
One and done.
But when you're looking for something, what are you looking for? How does it look like?
Yeah. And I'm a firm believer that the more educated you are, the better you can do something.
Education is quite a key component for you.
It's a huge one. But I also believe that the head lice category is a very emotional category. And I think that when you look at emotion and feeling anxious or upset about doing something, often it's because you don't know. You don't feel comfortable or confident. And so if you can help people feel comfortable and confident, then that reduces the anxiety. And that's been a really cool thing to bring through into the brand.
What has been a bit of a low point?
Low point. That whole frustration of trying not to feel like we wasted a whole heap of time on that distributor model was pretty hard. I think.
Why was it hard?
Because we've got such limited funds, and I feel like some days it's like you've only got this much time to prove yourself. And the low point came from this, what if I run out of money before I've had a chance to really see if this is going to fly? Because that would sit with me forever. I want the chance to see if this clinician pilot in the US takes off, because, it's a real opportunity. And we effectively, if this takes off, we entered the United States market for $2,000. Okay. Because Air New Zealand awarded me a dream seat to go to the States to meet with the lice experts and the lice removal networks. And then when I was there, I spent 2 weeks there, and I did 5 cities, and I lived in airports, and I just, as I said, ate hot dogs. I spent 2,000 New Zealand dollars on food and accommodation and staying with friends and whatever you need to do, right? That's all we've spent. And now all we've done is we've sent all our samples over there. The lice removal network are now taking care of the rest of it. They take a cut of everything they sell. That's how distributors work. So if this works, we entered the US market for $2,000. And what happened was our investors were initially, maybe before, I guess I didn't articulate it well enough, and this is something I'm learning to do better, is they were worried we were going to blow screeds of cash trying to get into Walmart, or, where you just dissipate into the noise, right? But because we said, hey, in terms of TAM, SAM, SONG, target, total addressable markets and things like that, we have, where else do you get a product where your person with the problem that you're trying to solve is right there in front of you at all times, and you can just sell your product directly to them in the lice clinic? Okay. Here,
There are no lice clinics here.
There's a couple, but it's not a model. And I don't know many people that can afford to spend that. But I mean, like here, you go into a pharmacy or a product is there. We're hoping that somebody with head lice walks into that pharmacy and sees that and wants to buy it or is advised by the pharmacy staff. But we're relying on the proportion that might happen.
So you're generally relying on the US market here?
Well, I think if it takes off, it'll be one of our bigger markets just from the sheer amount of population, and also the US will be our bigger market because we have that lice clinic model where we've already got people that have the issue right there. As I said here, we're relying on people finding us on Shopify or someone on Facebook. So many people like the idea of it on Facebook, but they might just save it for later because they don't have lice at the time. I should point out is that you're dealing with something that it's not like someone sees it like a cup and goes, I want it, I'm going to buy it now. You're dealing with a need product, but people only purchase it when they need it. They don't buy it and they keep it in the cupboard for later. And so advertising is very challenging because you've got to keep yourself at the forefront of people's minds.
At the same time, you need to educate people into I see a lot of need for like doing this because there's a need for people to understand the story behind it, to understand the founder behind it, to understand how it works and speak to people who may not be getting the problem now, but once they get the problem, then they remember the conversation, go, actually, I heard about this being spoken about somewhere. So hopefully this conversation has helped entrepreneur parents to, have brand awareness about this, but also understand from a entrepreneurial perspective, what does it take to start a health-related product and get it to succeed 3 years in. And now that you're 3 years in, where are you looking forward to? What is your goal? What do you want to achieve? Where do you want to be? What is the big, hairy, audacious goal that you have?
Oh, we're so cheeky. We want to have like 4 to 5% of the head lice market in like 5 years. So, but that doesn't sound like a lot.
Why do you laugh while you say that?
Because
why like it comes across
no, it's my goal. It is because
you actually believe that's going to happen.
I do.
Yeah.
I think we're so small now. Sometimes it can be hard to visualize what's going to happen. But I think if we keep doing what we're doing and with conviction that we can weather these storms, globally, but I think because we have such that point of difference that we're going to, whether it's through joint venture or whatever else, we are going to stay around and we're going to be known and take some of that market. And that's really important because...
why is it important for you to reach that goal?
Because there's a legacy element as there is to anything, but also it's because I would love to see that space acknowledge how important education and detection is. It would have meant that I've taken a category that has been very boringly old-fashioned and really, for the sake of such a cheesy word, disrupted it. Because it needed to be, not just because I wanted to, but because it needed to be, and because it's going to benefit families and communities, which is such a strong ethos of what I try and do and runs through every aspect of the business.
Mm-hmm. Final thoughts for our entrepreneurs?
Look, if you
had to die tomorrow, you and I die tomorrow, and then there's nothing else that you will share with the world except for that piece of advice that it's going to help someone out there make it in the world.
Look, if you've got an idea and you're thinking about starting a business and, without NDAs or, I say revealing the secret herbs and spices, tell everyone about it, okay? Because not only do you hone your elevator pitch, you're going to get people, and you should tell people that are in your target market and people that are not. You should tell them because when they say but what, they're either going to say but and they're going to say something that you go, we've already sorted that, but obviously you haven't communicated it well enough and you need to work on that. Or they're going to say but, and they're going to point out something that you haven't even thought of, right? And that gives you a gap to work on. So I see too many people that are kind of very secretive about it, or they'll only talk to their target market. But actually everybody has some value, in terms of a critical lens. So yeah, not just friends and family. They're always going to be super nice to you.
Kate, it's been so great to have you on the podcast. It's enlightened me to understand more about this niche and how it works. And hopefully dozens and dozens and dozens and thousands of people are going to be able to understand what it takes to get to the American market with $2,000. I think that would be my headline for this episode.
Really appreciate the time. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.